You can be loved or loathed and still get a shorter federal prison sentence. Give me 10 minutes or less and I'll explain to you how. Welcome to the White Collar Advice channel. My name is Justin Perperny, coming to you today from, I'm in Boston at the Wynn Casino where I've been for a couple of days. Busy day at sentencing hearings. It's like 11 o'clock now. I've been up since 4. I'll be back at it tomorrow with my good friend and lawyer, Mark Worksman. We're in from Los Angeles. Please like and subscribe if you find value in this content. I wanted to film this video live. I tried. Wi-Fi here, no good. So I'm going to record it and post it tomorrow. By the way, no blackjacks for JP over 2 days. No winnings, no blackjack, not cool. An executive drove in from New Hampshire to see me, an executive convicted at trial. Actually really cool. He waited about 90 minutes to see me because I got delayed with clients at sentencing. And following that meeting, I'm like, I have to film this. Let me share 3 stories with you in this video. Let's start with Scott Tucker. Scott Tucker was in the payday loan industry, a race car driver, and not a very popular figure. So unpopular, in fact, we did a video with him, and I think for like every 1 like, there was like 1,000 dislikes. I've never seen anything like it. We were on an American Greed episode. Not popular. Scott called and said, if you tell me to plead guilty, I won't hire you. And I said, why would I tell you to plead guilty? I have a psychology degree from USC. I went to prison, and lessons we teach come from my experience and everything I learned from my partner, Mike, who did 26 years. Nothing in that implies that I'm a lawyer. He said, great. He then said the Fed seized $1.3 billion from him. They took back all the money he gave to lawyers. That's a really interesting case study, by the way, on how that happened. And I've been assigned a federal public defender. The federal public defender is encouraging me to mitigate and prepare for the inevitability that I'm going to get convicted, even though I am innocent. Cool, we get to work. Now, in this case, it was helpful. The federal public defender embraced advocacy. If anything, they just didn't get in the way. They supported and really embraced what our team was going to do. We even went out to Indianapolis to see him. At a sentencing hearing, it's not too loud in here, I'll walk out. At a sentencing hearing, the government asked for 40 years in prison. And I think they said if you don't appeal, we'll ask for a shorter sentence. And kind of Scott's classic character, he's like, I'm innocent, go F yourself, have a nice day. Guess what? Despite being not the most popular person, to use a euphemism, he got 16 years, 6 months, not 40 years. Why? Get to that in a moment. Let's talk about Jerry Lundergan. Received a pardon last week from President Biden. And in the DOJ press release referenced Prison Professors Charitable Corporation that he began contributing to when he called me more than 4 years ago to tell me that he was going to trial because the government alleged that he illegally contributed to his daughter's Senate campaign against Mitch McConnell. And Jerry Lundergan is one of the most loved and popular figures in Kentucky. One of the greatest dudes you will ever meet. Always contributed and given back. And he knew that even though he felt he was innocent, that odds are he would lose. And he's like, I have a wife, I have 5 children, I want to begin to mitigate and create this insurance policy. In case I lose, I've given the millions of dollars to the lawyers, let them do their thing. I want to do my thing and really demonstrate that I'm different than how they perceive me, that I am part of this solution, as Michael Santos likes to say. And Michael Santos heard that directly from a judge we interviewed. How are you as a defendant part of the solution? Whether you've gone to trial or not, it doesn't matter. So based off that work and that mitigation, he went to trial, still advocated and mitigated, gets convicted at a sentencing hearing. The government asked for 63 months in prison, gets 21 months in prison. And last week, because of his amazing work to our nonprofit and others, President Biden pardons him. That then leads to this executive who called me from New Hampshire and who drove to see me. But watching our videos for about 3 weeks and kind of off the internet for a while, because his lawyer, who I have no doubt has good intentions, no doubt said to him, you're going to trial, there's nothing you can do to prepare for this trial. Let me do my job, and if you lose, we'll kind of consider how you can prepare for sentencing. Even after he lost and he was convicted pretty quickly, the lawyer then said what so many lawyers said. It's probably what the lawyer will say to Sean Combs if he's convicted. Or the lawyer said, to Diddy or Sam Bankman-Fried or Elizabeth Holmes. There's nothing you can do, because if you do, it will jeopardize your right to an appeal. In fact, if you Google some of those cases like Bankman-Fried or R. Kelly, you will see the lawyers like, we can't do anything, we're going to do it. Now, of course, letting the lawyers do everything, whether you go to trial or not, is inconsistent with what we've learned from interviewing judges. Judge Pearson told us, every fracture of a defendant's life, I need to know it has to come from the defendant. Judge Bennett, the nuts and bolts of the work has to come from the defendant. Judge Boo, 0 to 1% of what influences it comes from lawyers. Why? The lawyers paid to say it. The U.S. Attorney also has an objective to advance their career at your expense. Therefore, you have to do the lion's share of the work as the defendant. So this physician driving in to see me from New Hampshire is like, man, I didn't really know that I could really do anything because I was going to trial, and now I'm so devastated because I've been dealing with this case for 2.5 years, and there's so much I could have done during this time to really demonstrate why I'm different. And even though I've been convicted, that 2.5-year window I think would help me when I face a sentencing hearing, especially now that I hear the stories of Scott Tucker, Jerry Lundergan, and frankly others in our community have done the work. So the second best day to begin preparing was like yesterday. The best day is today, I told him. But it does require some discomfort, and that's how I'll wrap up this video. He drove to see me. He's been convicted at trial. The government's going to want more than 5 years in prison. And now he's going to kind of have this battle of a lawyer who's like, don't say anything, it will jeopardize your right to an appeal. I'm going to write everything in the memorandum. I'm going to demonstrate that you're a good husband, you're a good father, you didn't have bad intentions, you're going to appeal. We're not going to say anything that's going to jeopardize that right to an appeal, but you can't do much, which means he's going to go to a probation interview and say practically nothing because he fears he's going to jeopardize his right to an appeal. So you stay mum or quiet, and in so doing, the prosecutor's working full-time to advance their career at his expense. So I said to him, you should do exactly what Scott did, who wasn't very popular, or what Jerry did, who is loved. That's the reason he got a pardon. Everything he did was so documented, measurable, and built over an extended period of time. I would do exactly what they did. I would, through your own efforts, in a way that doesn't jeopardize your right to an appeal, demonstrate who you are. Where are you from? Have you learned any lessons that have helped you? How can you demonstrate that you are different than the government's version of events? Is there anything that you can do, anything productive you've done throughout your life we can build and measure in a timeline? He's like, Justin, there's so much. I've done so many things that I'm proud of. What do we do next? And that's going to be the next test, right? So the next step will be beginning to create and build for the sentencing, but then communicating this to a way in a lawyer that gets, I want to say buy-in because it's the defendant's life. I mean, no one can lead and advocate more than him, but the messaging is very, very important. And that's how I'm going to wrap it up for all of you, whether you go to trial or not. So many people find us, I'm so tired. So many people find us because they've seen our interviews with federal judges. And it's easier if you message this to the lawyers, not by saying, hey, I found this 50-year-old dude on YouTube who I saw on Dr. Phil and TV and stuff like that, and he's telling me to do this. Some lawyers have God complexes and egos, and they're immediately going to defend why they have made every decision they have made, because if they were to acknowledge this way is the right way, that could acknowledge they were doing something wrong. So the messaging is very important because a lawyer is an essential stakeholder as they advocate for you. So there could be a way to simply say, I'm scared about going to prison. And so many people find us through the judge interviews or the Bureau of Prisons website where they feature and profile Michael Santos. So how about something like this? It's truthful. I'm scared about going to prison. I have children. I've been convicted. They want a very long time in prison. They want to forfeit and take all of our assets. And I don't think I'm doing enough to convey to the judge why I'm different than this prosecutor who's working full time to send me to prison. While in fear, I came across some dude who'd been in prison for 26 years, featured on the Department of Justice and Bureau of Prisons website. And I saw that he runs a nonprofit that influences 1 million people in prison. I was just kind of curious. And I just wanted to reach out and be like, is there anything that I can do to help and contribute? I have time. I've always contributed. And through that conversation, I came across some interviews with federal judges. You can watch the interviews with the judges. I'll send them to you. I thought it was also cool that this guy serving 26 years is interviewing judges. That's kind of cool and probably pretty unusual. Anyways, based on this interview with the judge, I wrote this letter. And based on this other interview with the judge, I did this and I did that. I can share the interviews with you if you want to watch them. When you approach it from that perspective, with lawyers that are cynical or have God complexes or don't think there's anything you can do to mitigate your situation, just change the narrative a little bit, reframe it a little bit. You're selling all the time, people. You're trying to sell yourself to get a shorter sentence. You have to sell yourself to advocates who are going to advocate for you. So when we approach it from that perspective, most lawyers will say, this is really excellent work, and I can understand why you created it. Great, what's next? I want to share with the probation officer. I've never done that before. Well, I saw this interview with a federal judge who suggested we share this with the probation officer. And it goes on and on and on. Dealing with lawyers at times, sometimes I say I have a 6 and 10-year-old. We'll read a book at the end of a chapter. It's like, choose this, it will take you to another adventure. Or another adventure based on how they answer. Based on how the lawyer answers, if you get that God complex, no, you can't do it, you just do it step by step. And then based on how they respond, we go to another adventure. Based on how they respond, we go in a different direction. In the end, with good messaging, you tend to get what you want. You tend to get a shorter sentence, more liberty, because you are advocating in a way that is consistent with what federal judges have told us to do. So that's how I'll close. If Scott Tucker can do it, Google Scott Tucker. If Jerry Lundergan can do it, I am convinced this physician who drove from New Hampshire and waited more than 90 minutes to see me will do it, because he's getting started today, right now. Thanks for watching this video. Busy day tomorrow in court.